This VR golf controller attachment is an absolute game changer. It has improved my VR golf game immensely, and I'd highly recommend it. This is my review of the DeadEyeVR DriVR Elite. Let's get started. The DeadEyeVR DriVR Elite is a VR golf club controller attachment for the Quest 3. It allows you to swing your controller like a real golf club, and it feels dramatically more like a real golf club than using a controller alone or using a regular VR golf club controller attachment. This comes 95% of the way to simulating a real golf swing, and it is a ton of fun to use in games like Golf Plus. It has a real golf club grip at one end, it has a carbon fiber shaft, and it has a 3D printed mold for your Quest 3 controller. At this end, there are adjustable weights. You can unscrew this handle and remove weights from the end if you want to adjust the weight of the controller to tailor it to your liking. With all the weights in place, it weighs 573 grams. Now, this is quite a lot more than a regular golf club, but this is all intended because it's all about ensuring that the weight distribution is accurate and feels like swinging a real golf club. Because the weight is closer to your hands in this controller attachment than the weight is in a real golf club, it actually takes more weight for it to feel the same and for it to feel realistic. I believe this is about as close as I've ever come to simulating my real golf swing in VR. The grip feels like a real golf club. The controller is rock solid in the holster. The holster has rubberized edges that really hold the controller as securely as possible, ensuring that there's no wobbling or vibrating. I love the fact that they've got this dual mechanism where they've got a deep holster for the controller, but they've also got a hook and ratchet mechanism for the wrist strap to ensure that it's securely in place. It only takes about 30 seconds to mount your controller in the holster and start playing. You'll notice that the DriVR Elite has the Quest 3 controller pointing upwards, which is unlike most other VR golf club controller attachments. This is due to the fact that the infrared tracking lights on the Quest 3 controllers are actually mounted in the face of the controller, and these must be facing up at the cameras of your headset in order for them to work properly. One of the biggest advantages of using a controller attachment, and this one in particular, is the improvement that it brings for judging shot distance, particularly for your short game where you're typically hitting shots less than 100%, and also for putting. Using the controller alone, it's very, very difficult to judge the shots accurately. With this, it feels much more like using a real golf club and judging your shots like you would in real life. There was a significant period of adjustment when I went from using the controller alone to using the DriVR Elite controller attachment. Actually, my performance got significantly worse in the first week that I started using this. And this was because I'd been using the controller alone since I got my Quest 3 in October. And I'd become used to using the controller, and using this controller attachment felt significantly differently. However, after just a few days, I knew without a doubt that my performance would be significantly better using this controller attachment. I've seen slow and steady improvements in my game, and just yesterday I broke my own course record on TPC Sawgrass, providing some evidence to me that this can actually improve my game. The construction feels really solid. I have no issues whatsoever. It feels weighty, it feels solid, everything feels like it's going to last. I've put in about 40 hours with this controller attachment so far. It has stood up to the test really well. It looks good as new. It feels great. Everything feels really solid. There's nothing wobbly, nothing that I think is even going to break in time. I hope to be using this controller attachment for a long time to come. It is far and away the best one that I've used to date. I think the competition are going to have a really hard job topping DeadEyeVR in terms of making a more realistic and better VR golf club controller attachment. Let me know what you think in the comments below Are you convinced that this is the one for you, or do you see something from my experience that has put you off? Equally, have you tried it? If anyone out there has this controller attachment and has tried it, please share your experience in the comments section below. One point to note is that this controller attachment is longer than a lot of other controller attachments out there, so you will need more space when you're using it. You don't need as much space as you would if you were swinging a real golf club in your home, but it is worth bearing in mind. In addition, because it has a weighted end, if you do hit a wall or furniture, you could well damage something. It's also worth mentioning that the DriVR Elite does make it more difficult to use your controller in games. So whenever you're holding the controller, you're obviously gripping the golf club grip. And whenever you want to use the controller, you need to turn it around and hold the controller like this. The first few days, this actually felt really awkward, and I thought this was going to be a deal breaker. However, after about 2 or 3 days, it started to feel really natural that I would take my shot and then I would just swing the club round, grab the controller and press the trigger to move on to the next shot, or use the other buttons to access the menu. And I found I got used to it and it started to feel really natural within just a few days. So although it looks a little bit awkward, don't let this put you off. It really is. It's a good solution. You will get used to it. And I can't honestly see how DeadEyeVR could have done it much differently within the limitations of where the tracking lights are and the fact that the controller needs to be facing up so that the cameras of the headset can see the controller properly. Another point to mention is that the DriVR Elite is more expensive than other controller attachments. It is currently available on the DeadEyeVR website for £58. This is a discounted price down from £73. This is a premium price for a VR controller attachment. However, I do believe it's worth it. It's substantially better than anything else I've tried out there. The increased length and the weighted design makes it much more realistic in terms of simulating your golf swing. If you're at the point where you're graduating from playing VR golf with your VR controller to using a controller attachment, I would say it is worth paying a little bit extra to go for something like this. I don't think you'll regret it. The build quality is fantastic, the way it works is great, and it really does get you significantly closer to simulating a real golf swing. I've had absolutely no issues with the tracking whilst using this controller attachment. I think the positioning of the controller is absolutely perfect. Obviously, the Quest 3 uses inside-out tracking, and we do have some limitations in terms of where the headset can track and the accuracy and the latency of that tracking. But within these limitations, it really is excellent. I have no complaints whatsoever. In terms of putting your Quest 3 controller into the DriVR Elite controller attachment, it's actually dead simple. There is a hole at the bottom of the controller holster and the wrist strap for the controller gets threaded through this. Now you can remove the wrist strap and poke it through, but actually it's reasonably easy just to poke it through without removing the wrist strap. Once you've poked it through, you just put the Quest 3 controller in place, making sure that the face of the controller is pointing in the direction of the shaft of the golf club. Next, you want to secure the wrist strap. That's where this hook and ratchet mechanism come into play. All you do is take the wrist strap, put it over the hook, and turn this knob here. You'll hear it clicking away, and you just tighten it so that this wrist strap feels tight and the controller is securely in that holster. Once it's in place, there's no way it's coming out. It really is so secure. There's actually rubberized pads on the inside of the cup that holds the controller, and this really does hold it very, very securely indeed. I've used other controller attachments where I have been disappointed with how the controller has been secured to the controller attachment. I've had a few near failures with some of them. They're not all brilliant. This one is. So if you're an enthusiastic golfer like me and you want to be able to play VR golf on a regular basis, but actually hit shots consistently and get better at the game, then you should think about getting a VR golf club controller attachment. This is the best one I've tried. I think it's excellent. I think it's worth the extra money. Is it perfect? No. Does it provide a perfect simulation of golf? No. But I think it's as close as we're going to get to realistic golf in VR for now. It's a little bit pricey, but I think it offers good value for the price. I'd highly recommend you check it out on the DeadEyeVR website. If you've enjoyed this video, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel and join me for more VR videos over the coming months. Thanks so much for watching, guys. It's been a pleasure. Take care now.